Hello, thank you for joining me. Today I want to talk a bit about Sony's PlayStation 4 reveal, which was just last night. In addition, I'd like to talk a little bit about Square Enix's showing there, and about why I think they are not remaking Final Fantasy VII. More on that later. For now, let's start with the PlayStation 4. I'm really pleased with the specs that we got. I think it's it's sounding very good. I'm really glad that they went with the architecture that they did, because it's it's a classic, really widespread PC architecture, and it's going to make it a lot easier for developers to develop for. I think I mean, just that alone is Sony saying, look, we get it. The cell processor was too complicated. We're going to go with something where we can get the parts cheaper, and that is easier to develop for. It's a big win for developers and consequently for game players. So I'm very excited about that. In addition, spec-wise, I'm really happy with the 8 gigs of RAM. I will double check, but the PlayStation 3, I believe, has like half a gig of RAM. So we're talking like a 16 times increase in RAM. I really was not expecting them to say 8 gigs. That really surprised me. I expected 4. So to hear 8 is very encouraging, because it means that that's not going to be a bottleneck. And that has been a bottleneck in the past with the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 2. So that's another thing that I think is going to be good for developers, and I can imagine developers asking for that. So it's interesting. I think what I was expecting from Sony, and I think what I wanted, was a little bit of leadership this generation. Because I think last generation, in all honesty, they kind of ended up on the bottom of the pile, I think, in terms of the home system and the portable system. Not to say that they failed in any way, because I think that they really held even, and I think that the decisions that Sony made initially panned out in the long run. But they definitely they don't want to repeat mistakes that they made last generation. Just to kind of I guess paint the picture of that a little bit is, I'm thinking of 4 of my friends right now who are big gamers. I'm really blessed to have friends who are passionate about gaming as well. So it's fun. We can play games together and we can talk about games together. And 2 of them play, they basically game on the Xbox 360, and 2 of them primarily game on the PlayStation 3. But all of them own a PlayStation 3. Okay. And I would almost say they all own an Xbox 360 as well. I'm pretty sure that they're dual on all of them. I mean, we're gamers. It's interesting, though, because I think that might be somewhat representative of the gaming population in general. Not that everybody has, both of those systems, but that, I think it's a pretty even split. You're talking about half people playing on the 360, and half people playing on the PlayStation 3. When it comes to, the kind of the sizes of their install bases, they're pretty even. With the PlayStation 4, though, I think what Sony did, instead of taking a real leadership position, is they stepped back a little bit, and it was sort of more of this humble approach. This is them coming out and saying, you know what, we're going to listen this time. We're going to listen to developers. We're going to listen to consumers, our customers. So that's good. What it means, I think, is that they're trying to get games on their system. And really, we can talk loyalty and brand loyalty and company loyalty and stuff all we want to, but if we want a game, we need to go where the games are. It's interesting for me going into this next generation, because I guess just personally, I know that I own a Vita already, but I'm seeing that games are going to the 3DS. Games are certainly going to the Vita, and I'm playing them and enjoying them, but games are happening on the 3DS that I want. I mean, it's not just like, oh, this is a platform that I can play games on, and I'll get it because I just want to play some games. It's like, no, these are must-buys. The 3DS is getting, what is it, like that crossover RPG with like Sega and like Namco Bandai and Capcom characters, like all in one. Like, when that comes out, if I don't have a 3DS, I'm buying one. Like, I'm just buying it. That's all there is to it. So I'm gonna own both, both of the handhelds this generation, and I'm definitely not getting whatever Microsoft does. I'm not going to get a 720, and that's just because of what happened with this generation with the 360. Microsoft burned that bridge with me, and that's just a personal thing. But it makes things a little easier for me, because it means I either get a Wii U and a PlayStation 4, or just a PlayStation 4, for the foreseeable future. I'm pretty much committed to the PS4, especially after this reveal that they did. And I'm not going to say that it's so much because of the games that they showed off. I don't know how interested I really am in some of these as sort of like system movers. But it was nice to see what the new games look like. Definitely impressive, and it's fun to see the 3D technology, progress. It's a little hard for me because I have my heart in two places. It's in retro games and it's in the new games. So part of me just wants to say, whatever, and I don't want to see another first-person shooter. And Killzone was like, it looked pretty, but who cares? That's kind of easy to say as as somebody who loves the Dreamcast, let's say. But, as somebody who loves all of that, I kind of need to have a bigger heart than that. So really, I'm interested to see where this goes. The kind of games that they showed off, they're not really where my heart is, but the developers that they mentioned are where my heart is. So it's very encouraging to see. I mean, X-Corn Muffin X, mentioned the same thing, and that it's these names that they showed off. You had like Atlas and Namco Bandai and Marvelous and Nipponichi and Genki and just all of these developers. You had Idea Factory, and I don't actually remember if Compile Heart was on there, but Level 5 was definitely on there. Boy, it's just everybody that I want to see games from. So I don't want to read too much into this. And this isn't like a Wii U bashing session or anything either. I'm kind of rooting for Nintendo this time. I certainly see a future in which I own the Wii U and the PlayStation 4. I think that's kind of where I'm going. But the PlayStation 4 is going to be day one. The Wii U, I'm still waiting. And what I'm waiting for is definitely just games that I really want. Like I said, I can't drink that Kool-Aid where I just buy the system on principle. It's just not going to happen. For the Wii U, they need to show me the games. For the 3DS, they needed to show me the games, but they have, and I'm getting it. So when they do that with the Wii U, I'll get that too. But the PlayStation 4, I am getting on principle, just because it sounds cool. We heard some other stuff. I mean, you guys probably know all this information, but you're going to be able to observe other people's play sessions, which is really neat. I'm really looking forward to using some of those features. The share feature, I don't know, because I actually invested money in a 8 high def capture, and I'm used to editing the videos on my computer, and I already I've done some live streaming stuff on Ustream and things like that, but it's interesting to see them take that and build it into the PlayStation 4. So I may use that, I'm not sure. But the being able to kind of game with my friends, we used to play single player games with my friend sitting next to me on the couch, and we'd take turns, he'd play, I'd play, and we'd swap the controller back and forth, and that's just a great way to play. Even Braid, Jonathan Blow was at the presentation as well, which I think was really interesting. And I actually played Braid with one of my friends, and it was so great because sometimes those puzzle games, you're gonna get 80% of it by yourself, maybe 90% of it, and then your friend is going to be able to solve, maybe 80 or 90% of it themselves. But that last 10 or 20% that you're going to struggle with, the part that I'm going to struggle with probably overlaps with the part that my friend isn't going to struggle with. If you just have two people playing it, you're going to be able to get through the game so much easier. And seeing them thinking ahead a little bit and going, let's try to incorporate this into our console, where we can have, I can still have that experience again as an adult, and it's like we're sitting on the couch next to each other. That's neat. It's cool. So, those kind of sharing and social features that they talked about, I think are very interesting, and it's good. I guess in terms of a leadership role, that's something that we haven't really seen from anybody else yet. So I am excited to see them tackling that. So PlayStation 4, overall, I think definitely was a good reveal. We didn't get specifics like price and release date, and we didn't see what the console looked like, but E3's coming up. They have a lot of time to reveal those things. This was just to get people excited and to get developers involved. Things are looking good for Japanese gaming on the PS4. I'm wondering if one of the reasons we haven't seen a lot of third-party Japanese games coming out for the Wii U is because Japanese developers are looking at the PlayStation 3 as the place to release their games this generation. I know certainly that the 3DS has been kind of the handheld that people have been going to, but I think developers are going to go for what makes sense for them, and I don't think developers are really, as brand loyal as we think they might be either. So it's interesting to see. I think that's the battle that Sony is waging right now. And I know that whatever Microsoft does is not going to get the Japanese developers. They have a good relationship with a few, and they might maintain that, or they might, try to, encourage people to release stuff on their systems. But I think, Japan kind of likes its own, and they're going to release stuff for the PlayStation 4 or the Wii U, and it might just be a lot on both. So we'll see how it goes. But it's possible that Sony is going to get the lion's share of Japanese developers this next gen. We'll see how that goes. I'm curious to see. But Square Enix had a presence at the reveal. I just remember myself thinking when this guy comes out on stage that he has a big responsibility and a big opportunity for Square Enix to save some face publicly, because I think fans are annoyed and fed up and frustrated with what's happening to IPs at Square Enix. Alpha Omega Sin did a really cool rant about why Final Fantasy VII is not being remade. And I'll put a link to it so you guys can check that out if you want. But it really resonated with me, and it was entertaining and it was funny, and but I really I was kind of why aren't they doing this? And I've had an opportunity to talk to two of my friends about this at length. Not just then, but even in the past year or two we've talked about it. And I had. One of my friends actually works in the video game industry, so we were talking about it, and I'm like, why Why is Square Enix not doing this? Because it seems like a no-brainer to me. You have a popular IP, which maybe is struggling a little bit, and you have old fans that really want to see one of their favorite games remade in HD. All kinds of people are doing HD remakes. You've got Silent Hill, you've got Metal Gear Solid, they're doing Zone of the Enders. I mean, they're just going HD remake crazy. So it seems like a no-brainer. Take Final Fantasy VII, do an HD remake. Me personally, I have to admit, I've never played Final Fantasy VII. Never played it. I played some of the snowboarding minigame in it, but because one of my friends had it and I enjoyed checking that out. But I've never played it, so I'd like them to remake it because I can play it anytime I want to, the PlayStation version. But if they did an HD remake, it would give me a reason to be excited about it again, because in all honesty, I have a lot of other games vying for my time and attention. I have new games and old games and all kinds of games, so why am I going to stop what I'm playing and go, now is the right time for me to play Final Fantasy VII, because you did an HD remake, and then I would do it, and a lot of people would do it. A lot of people would be really happy. So I asked my friend, I'm just like, why? It boggles my mind. It just, as a gamer, it doesn't make any sense why they wouldn't just do this. So he mentioned some stuff like, well, it would take a lot of resources, or it would be kind of risky, and I'm like, well, no, it wouldn't be risky because it's a sure thing. For one thing, they've made the game already. Secondly, people want it. There are already games that they're making, like Final Fantasy Versus, that nobody asked for. Lightning Returns or something like that. There's no guarantee. Those are risky too. They're very risky. Because, how do they know that they're going to sell any better than Final Fantasy VII Remake would? They don't. And he also said, well, it takes a lot of resources and stuff like that. I mean, one way he put it is that, just sort of like the part that you think takes a lot of work, sort of like what happens in the game, isn't necessarily a lot of the work. A lot of it is like just the assets and all the stuff they would have to do for the remake. But again, they're already putting how long have they worked on Versus? Like 7 years now. They've put a lot of work into that, and they don't know. Again, it's not a sure thing like 7 is. So I'm like, it still doesn't make any sense. So finally, he's like, well, they run the risk of damaging their brand, and I was like, well, what do you mean? Because the game's already out, years ago. If anything, I think it would help it. But this is where things started to make a little bit of sense to me, which is that the people, the talent that they had that made these games, they aren't necessarily there anymore. And forgive me for not, knowing the names of everybody that worked on Final Fantasy. But they might not even work for the company anymore. And I was like, okay. So, because even something as simple as a remake, like if you don't have the person that sort of steered the ship, that kind of knew what was going on. Is it Inafune? The Mega Man guy that did Mega Man and Dead Rising and all these great things for Capcom. If they want to do another Mega Man game, well, guess what? They can make Mega Man games all they want to, but they don't have him there anymore, and that matters. It's really easy to screw these games up. I think Resident Evil 6 is a perfect example of that, where you're going to make something that's a game and it's playable and it's decent, but if it doesn't have that vision behind it, you run the risk of pissing off and alienating your fans, and that's kind of what they did with Resident Evil 6. The situation that they're in, and it sounds so silly for them to have to kind of almost admit this, is that they're not the company they used to be. And the people that established the IPs that they own probably aren't working on those anymore. And I think it poses a real problem for them. Another thing that I finally feel like I understand, and I got this through, I think, to one of my other friends, is it frustrates the heck out of us as gamers to see a company like Square Enix doing all of this weird stuff, and even just these Japanese companies in general, like looking at World of Warcraft and Call of Duty and all of these things like they have to make games like that, otherwise they will perish from the earth. It doesn't make any sense to us, because for years they've made wonderful games that we've purchased and enjoyed, and now it seems like they're straying further and further from that, and all they're really doing is releasing EDOS games and mobile games and stuff, and it's like, why? What? These aren't the companies that we've grown up with and supported for all these years. And that's the main thing, is they aren't those companies anymore. I think this is just something that we have to accept, is in this current gaming climate, these companies have just gotten extremely big. And it does take a lot of resources to make these games. It seems like there's no reason why they can't take smaller teams and make smaller games, but then they're making, smaller money. And they're a big organization, and they require a lot of money to run as a big organization now. They just have a lot of people. We're never going to get the 90s, or the aughts Square Enix back. We can't go back in time. Things have changed. So, I think hopefully the best that we can hope for is to see them take some risks in some safer ways for them. Maybe it's in mobile, maybe it's on portable systems. I don't know what it is. Maybe they just figure out. Maybe Ni no Kuni comes along and they decide that that's the new thing that makes lots of money. So maybe they'll start to kind of get back into that kind of thing. But we just have to wait and see. And I think just buy the games that they make that are the closest to what it is that we really want. And hopefully they'll put out some good stuff. Other than that, it might just be looking at smaller companies to come along and just take up the mantle for the bigger companies, because they're just too big. They're just too big now. But anyway, that said, this was a real opportunity for Square Enix to save some face. And instead, they came out and they said, hey, check out this video that you've already seen like months ago. And then they had some guy come out and he's like, yeah, we're going to make a Final Fantasy for the PlayStation 4. Good. I'm glad there's a Final Fantasy game coming out for PlayStation 4. But seriously, that did nothing to help Square Enix's public image. Yeah, so that's about all I wanted to say. Just wanted to give my impressions on the PlayStation 4. Excited for it, and I think we saw some really good stuff. I think Sony has positioned themselves very well to be the go-to platform for Japanese developers this generation, and we'll just have to see how that pans out. In addition to that, I'm probably going to be doing another video here coming up of a room tour. I think I'm going to take you around and just show you what's going on. I saw Luke Morse just did a similar thing, and I just watched him doing it, and I'm like, okay, it's time. I got to do this. I'll probably do one, maybe one a year or something, just so you can kind of see how things change and what goes on. But I'll probably do that this weekend. So, hope you're looking forward to that. I'm sorry that this video has gone on for so long, but thanks for sticking with me. And yeah, I'll catch you again next time. Thanks for watching.